It is 1:35. Thank you for joining everyone. Welcome to the challenge webinar for the future of football. I'd like to introduce myself to start with. My name is Rashid Mazouri. I'm the current account manager for the Future Football program, which will be elaborating more with my colleagues as well. We have from my side, from the Dubai Future Foundation, we have my colleagues Natasha Malik and Sheikh Al-Tamimi. She will be introducing themselves as well in a few minutes. Just to note for everyone, the webinar will be recorded and shared with interested startups and scale-ups, just as a note for everyone as well. Whoever misses it, you would like to share it with anyone who would like to view it later in the future. So just to an overview of what we're going to be going through today in today's webinar is, first we'll start with introducing the Dubai Future Foundation and Dubai Future Accelerators. And then I'll hand the mic to Edu, who will be explaining about, we'll introduce Sportboost, and then we'll be handing the stage to Shane, who'll be introducing UAE football and the challenge details. And then the mic will be handed from there to Natasha Malik, who will be explaining in depth on the program design, the opportunities, and the timeline. And then we're going to have like a Q&A session after that. So, to begin with, Dubai Future Foundation started as an exhibition in the World Government Summit. It was an initiative. It seeded the initiative, an idea as an initiative by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed Rashid to launch the Dubai Future Foundation to institutionalize future shaping. And in the next slide, basically, Dubai Future Foundation is. It goes by the quote by His Highness, which is those who can shape the future must imagine, design, and execute it, which divides Dubai Future Foundation into three sections. In the imagine section, we have for example, the Dubai Future Museum, which you see here in the picture, or as well as the Dubai Future Research Team. And in the design section, we also have the Dubai Future Accelerators, which is where we stand, or Dubai Future Academy, or Dubai Future Labs as well. And in the executing section, it's in partnership with implementing future strategies in partnership with the Dubai government. And in the next slide. And so just to elaborate more on Dubai Future Accelerators, Dubai Future Accelerators is a bridge between government sector and private sector organizations from Dubai with startups and scale-ups from with innovative solutions from all around the world to co-create and test solutions for predefined projects, which we call challenges. We do this through several of our initiatives. One of our main ones is the cohort, which we are currently running. And in the next slide, you can see as well that our achievements from these several initiatives. So far, we've worked with 290 participating companies from 39 different countries, all with a total of almost 90 pilot projects here in Dubai. And we've through our through the partnerships that we've built with UAE government and corporate entities and startups, that we've seen so far 180 plus MOUs signed. And in the next slide, I'll explain a sort of example of one of our previous successful programs between Dubai Electricity and Water Authority with Solavio, who's conducted a pilot project to clean their solar panels with retrofit dry cleaning bots. This helped showcase basically an energy recovery of 99.6%, and DO managed to save 260 liters of water per annum. And since the program, they have grown 125 times to become a $2 million company in 2 years. And in the next slide, we have another example, which is the company P4ML, which is an Irish company, who's currently who's connected currently with Dubai Health Authority. They've conducted pilots in Dubai Hospital to help identify high-risk pregnancy at a faster rate, which from 15 to 21 days to 5 to 7 days. And their next step currently is creating a local laboratory to conduct tests in UAE. So these are basically two of our examples that we've worked so far with Dubai Future Accelerator. I'd like to now hand the floor to our friend Edu Valdez from Sportboost, who will be elaborating more on Sportboost.
Thank you, Rashid. Well, I'm Edu Valdez, the business developer of Sportboost. And in Sportboost is a global sport accelerator related to startups, led by the ex-Real Madrid professional player Iker Casillas. And in our background, we have more than 20 years of experience in the field of sports. Our aim and involvement in this project is we will support the startups providing advice in fundraising. They will count with the possibility of drawing investment, mentoring, and also connecting startups with our global sports networking. Now I would like to introduce our partner Shane Hart, Senior Specialist and Strategy at UAE Football Association. Please, Shane.
Thank you, Edu. Thank you all. I hope you can hear and see me clearly. And look, the purpose of today's session is obviously introduce us, the challenge, the partners we're working with at DFF and Sportsboost. So thank you very much for joining. And look, we thank our partners at Sportsboost and Dubai Future Foundation with this opportunity to have this sort of stage to look at addressing some of the big challenges. As I've been mentioned, my name is Shane Hart-Jones. I look after strategy, transformation and investment at the UAE Football Association. We're going through a big transformation at the moment with the UAE FA. We're going through this era of looking from the past, diagnosing some of our challenges, and also going into a new project called Vision 2038. And Vision 2038 has been set up by our president and our trusted board members and leaders, Sheikh Rashid Al Nuaimi, to look at how do we revolutionize not only on the field activity, which includes big KPIs and public goals, which we publicize now, looking at World Cup qualification, but also how do we connect on a fan level, how do we connect on a player level, and with our ecosystem in football here, and using football as a tool to obviously develop. Let me just highlight a little bit about the UAE Football Association. Like every other association, federation, we are the national governing body in the United Arab Emirates. And we have the mission and dedicated support from the General Authority of Sport here and FIFA as a member to obviously develop the UAE across the sporting landscape right from the professional angle, the national team, right through to grassroots in order to achieve international success and obviously our new strategic goals. Go to the next slide, please. So just to understand a little bit more detail toward the project before we go into some of the challenges, we've got a really big mandate of looking at capturing our existing talent pool in the UAE, making sure that we've got a very good talent identification and capture system. But this project kind of alludes into that. And what we're looking at is how might we obviously identify, engage and develop and reward some of these young players in our systems, and then how do we nurture them, communicate, and then go from a grassroots level into then the professional game and the developmental areas right through to our national team. Going into some of the problems that we've identified through our diagnosis period in our strategy build, we obviously want to increase the competitiveness not only in our local and professional leagues and our youth leagues and our rankings across the country, but also leading from the school system, the private academy league system, which is well established in the UAE, and adding that connectivity. So we've got that player pathway from the grassroots right up into the international arena. Truth be told, we've currently a very limited number of youth players registered with the federation in the low thousands, but we're very aware and we're engaged with a lot of stakeholders who are competing in football on a semi-organized or you would call it a lowly organized league structures, informal structures in that sense. And what we're trying to do is obviously connect our player pathways so that we can understand who this talent pool may be, whether they may be eligible to play, not only in boys and men's football, but women's football, likes of futsal, beach soccer, and obviously feed into that talent pathway system. Currently, and it alludes into the problem that we have at the moment, the grassroots, because we don't have that oversight and the tool necessarily at the moment to oversee the hundreds of thousands of kids playing football in the school systems, the academy systems, there is a bit of fragmentation with the youth system. a lot of it falls down into other governing bodies, other government departments, excuse me, such as the Dubai Sports Council, Abu Dhabi Sports Council, who do phenomenal jobs in recognizing and promoting the likes of youth football. But as the governing body and the umbrella of UAE football, not just regionally, but across on a federal level, it is our responsibility to oversee and to make sure that we've got minimum safety standards obviously in place, and people are playing in an inclusive environment, and making sure that we can recognize talent when it comes around, so that we nurture those individuals and they don't leave our system in the future. All in the same goal of identifying the next generation of talent, but also connectivity with some of our strategic goals as well. I think it's relatively straightforward as to why this is important, but again, it alludes to what we're here to do today. Really, we're looking for a solution and obviously potential partners to go through and enable us to connect and identify this generation, this new generation of talent leading to 2038, where we've got a strategic KPI of 2025 to actually have up to 80,000 kids and youth structures registered, and at least semi-formally registered within our systems, so we can understand and then obviously offer our services, our mentoring, our training and our coaching, all in that goal to develop not only the on-field success, but also improving the likes of health, wellness, connectivity and participation across the landscape of football. And that runs right through that fragmented pyramid which we've got at the moment is our community and grassroots football. Then obviously we start to add the likes of scouting systems and products and other things into, once they develop into our obviously professional, more competitive structures. But right now we're missing that bottom half of the pyramid, but we know it's obviously out here in the UAE, and there's a lot of people who would love to engage with the FA, and vice versa. We're very keen to obviously engage back. So look, this solution would obviously look to support our young players to have more fun, to be active, to be connected, and improve things like positive social behaviors, providing a safe ecosystem with our oversight and our safeguarding experience, as well as obviously bringing, as I've mentioned, benefit for the likes of the youth and their parents as well.
All right, thank you so much, Shane. I'll just go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Natasha, and I am part of the Dubai Future Foundation team, which is working on this program. Now, thank you so much, Shane and Edu, for highlighting a little bit about the partners and, of course, the challenge that's going to be, the focus of our program. But if you do have a solution for this, how do you get involved? So I'm going to take you through that journey. So to be able to go ahead and apply for this challenge, you will go ahead and create your future ID. There's a link here, which is id.dubaifuture.ae, and this will be something that will be emailed to you post as well, so you don't need to necessarily note that down. But basically, this is you creating your account to be able to access all the different opportunities on the Dubai Future Foundation portal, which includes services beyond just the challenge platform as well. Once you've created your login details, you can then go ahead and fill out your application for the Footballing Data Capture and Talent Identification Challenge. Now, this the application form is quite self-explanatory. We're looking at understanding a little bit more about the company that you represent, more specifically about the solution and the impact that it can bring for the UAE FA and football as a whole in the UAE. So once you've applied, then we go into the fun process of shortlisting and evaluating all the applicants. And the deadline for the application period is the 18th of November at 12 a.m. So basically, if you're based in Dubai, the end of day on the 17th. And during the shortlisting and evaluation period, you will be able to track your application on the same platform by logging in. You'll be able to see the different stages it has to move through and what stage it is at right now. And if you see a green tick, that means your application is still live. In the case that you start seeing a red cross, that means that unfortunately at that stage it didn't make it through. Now, once we finalize and evaluate and shortlist those companies, we will then move forward to onboarding them onto phase one. So phase one is the virtual phase of the program. And there will be 6 companies that will be brought into this phase. And this is the opportunity where you'll be collaborating very closely with the entities. So with UAE FA, with SportBoost, with DFF. And the whole idea here is for you to understand in detail the current processes at UAE FA, basically all the knowledge that you need to tweak your solution or put forth a viable solution. At the end of the 3-week period, you will then be doing a pitch. The pitch is, you basically sharing, your understanding of the processes and how your solution can actually be tweaked and what value it can add. What you will also be sharing is the kind of scope of work you would be doing for the pilot if you are selected. So if it's, what would be the scope of it, what kind of integrations you'll be looking into if you are selected to be one of the top 3. Now, these top 3 companies that are selected will also have the opportunity to be presented at the Globe Soccer Awards alongside other prominent names in football. So that's going to be a very great global, let's say, platform for you to be able to share the kind of work that you will be at least testing out with the UAE FA in Dubai. We will then move on to phase 2, which is going to be happening in the first quarter of 2022. These finalists will be onboarded. We will cover the flights, visas, and accommodation for 2 participants per company for the 3 companies that have been selected to do the POC and the pilot in Dubai. And then at the end of that 6-week period, that is where UAE FA, while closely working with you during that 6-week period, make the final decisions about who they would like to move forward with. Now, there are, of course, a number of benefits of being part of this program. Not only do you get a chance to create potential partnerships with top-level stakeholders in UAE, but you're actually getting direct access to key decision makers in government and in the private sector. Dubai Future Foundation also takes 0 equity in your business. Our focus is on bringing impact to Dubai and to actually support the future of football. Also, you have the opportunity of possible introductions to other sports sector clients upon successful POC or pilot with UAE FA. This is an opportunity that SportBoost unlocks for you, so that's very exciting. There's also the possible opportunity for SportBoost to invest in the startups, depending on the outcomes of the POC. So if you are very successful in phase 2 and you've left a mark, then definitely these are opportunities that are open to you. We also, like I covered earlier, cover the round airfare to Dubai, and we paid accommodation visas for the in-resident participants. This is to ensure that there's nothing standing in between you and actually doing the pilot. Now, once you arrive in Dubai, you actually have the opportunity to join the most vibrant ecosystems in the region, and also the opportunity to be connected to regional investors if this is something that is interesting for you. We can also, through our partners, help you process your company setup in Dubai, formation, and any kind of support services that you might be needing for that. We also have the Dubai Future Labs, which my colleague Rashid referred to earlier, which actually gives you access to prototyping equipment. And we also have a 3D printing lab, a lot of exciting, prototyping spaces here. And you also get the opportunity to be nominated to apply for the Golden Visa, which is a longer duration visa for the UAE. All right, so these are all in all some of the benefits. Now, I'll just hand it over back to Edu to just kind of highlight this opportunity.
Thank you, Natasha. And yeah, coming back to the point of the Global Soccer Awards, just to let you know that it's actually one of the most important football events in the world, where Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lewandowski, even Iker Casillas, among other players, have been rewarded in the last years. And we will give the opportunity to the finalists to be awarded over there. So it's a great opportunity to be linked and to expose in one of the most important events your product, your platform, and be awarded over there. Next slide. Yeah. So now it's time for questions.
Yes. All right, Rashid, I think I'll hand it over to you to lead this.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Edu, Natasha, Shane. We're now going to be taking any questions that any of you have. Let's see here. I'll be just trying to gather all of these. What are the, okay. So what are the current profiles of the players registered with UAE FA? Shane, I believe you can take this question.
Moment. So what are the current profile of players? So at the moment, we look at the established players which are playing in the professional club structures and systems. So it's the leagues that we personally operate as the FA, which covers our government registered league clubs. So we obviously look at just over 5,000 youth players registered within our system, and they all go from U12s, U14s, U16s, U18s, under 23s, reserve leagues, and then obviously register the likes of the professional players. The primary reason we haven't expanded that in the past is we do the registration process according to the FIFA's player registration system, and the primary goal is to protect those players from obviously being, when they are scouted, there is a player compensation in the future. Now we're looking at that informal relationship with the wider community, and obviously the communication, how to get involved into football, how to learn more, etc. And then how do we obviously interact? So that's the reason as to why perhaps we haven't been looking there, but those are the individuals. So the professional club academies primarily.
Perfect. Thank you, Shane. So the next question is, what is the selection evaluation process and any criteria when it comes to selection? So we can't really go too in depth with this, but I believe Natasha can explain sort of the, basic overview of how it's going to.
I think, Edu, I think you might be the right person for this one, and I can add.
Yeah. In base of the criteria, here I would like to highlight and remark the importance of being connected with the guidance principles that we are demanding for the project. So first of all, it has to be fun and rewarding, related to gamification. Then it has to provide a community, or have to be focused on the community. It has to provide that intelligence data capture or gathering that we were talking during the whole presentation. It has to be safe and secure. And to end with, we have to focus also in the ecosystem engagement of the platform. So let's focus on these 5 points in order to evaluate, or one of the main points at the evaluation.
Perfect. Thank you, Edu.
Perfect. I just want to add here that the most important criteria is, of course, the fit to challenge. And when you are applying, it is quite important for you to highlight in your application, why is it that your solution solves this challenge? So looking at it from a perspective of, the kind of community it builds, or what is the what could be the different, let's say, stakeholders that you could have views for. But the whole idea here is how closely it ties or fits to the challenge. And then, of course, the degree of innovation and the guiding principles that Edu highlighted, they're all in line with that. But I think when applying, very important to highlight what is unique about your solution, if it's ever been deployed before, to share that information. All of it is outlined in the application form. And then, of course, why is it the best fit for the challenge?
And it's really important to be to add as much as information as possible in order to have a better overview of the whole proposal that you are applying in the platform.
Perfect. Thank you, Natasha and Edu. So this one's for Shane. He asks, what age groups are concerned given the large expat population? Does it apply to foreign nationals who would eventually help build a strong league nationally?
Okay, I think it's a great question. Obviously, when you're looking at the older age groups in terms of the youth and teenagers, and they would be our primary target for the likes of scouting networks, etc. But we're actually looking to target all age groups, to be quite frank. Any kids that are very much engaged with football, even going into the amateur side of football as well. And that includes some of our other mandates in our wider strategy, which look at connecting with fans and enthusiasts of the country, just to get people participating, understanding where the clubs are, so we can obviously develop more of a fan engagement relationship. Looking at obviously expanding our commercial mandate with, do people want to buy a national team jersey and how would they do that? But primarily it would depend, our target has got a multifacet to it. We would obviously look at the youth ranks and the participants in more elite streams of football on a talent ID level. But we'd also love to understand on the wider level, and that would apply to actually all nationalities, not only the local, but also our target focus would actually be looking at the expats who we don't have the information of at the moment.
Perfect. Thank you, Shane. We have another question here by Ian Warner. He's asked two questions actually regarding private player data collected, stored, and managed to this point. Is there any guidance on data privacy for individuals, especially youths in the UAE? Shane, do you wanna answer this?
Sure. It's quite a technical question, so thanks, Ian. On a footballing level and on a governing body level, we have regulations which are public, obviously go through the likes of FIFA recommendations about player registration policy, and you can find those things on the FIFA. So we adhere to those sort of standards. We make sure that any crucial information such as telephone numbers, contact details, the residency of those individuals won't be shared, and obviously may be exclusive to the likes of the rights holder, whether that's given some sort of access to a private entity, if we're going to be working in collaboration to that. That's something which I'm not 100% clued up with in terms of data protection and youth data protection. So there would have to be some careful management and navigation around the local laws in the UAE around that. And that would be something to consider as part of the research and scope, hopefully, for you to move forward.
I think just to add, within laws of the UAE, also any kind of data collected in the UAE has to stay within the UAE. So I think that's also very important with regards to the kind of solution that we might be seeing, that if data needs to be stored in your servers in a different country, that would potentially we'll also need to have the conversation about how we will keep the data locally in UAE.
Perfect, thank you, Natasha. On the next question, we have within the project you already have a tested methodology to evaluate the performance of the club's playing style and the individual technical performance of the player. So currently, I don't believe we have any tested methodology to evaluate.
I think maybe Shane should take this. I think this is more from a player perspective on how they are maybe evaluating the players and the data points they're collecting.
Sure. Yes, historically, we've had a very hands-off approach in the way that we operate. A lot of the clubs obviously will have their own different scouting methodologies and player periodization schedules, and obviously reviewing the types of talent that is available and whether they're left-footed, right-footed, 6 feet tall at a certain age, etc., and doing speed and agility testing. As far as the UAE FA is concerned, we do work with the likes of data analyst companies for scouting for the national teams, but for this sort of solution where we're trying to reach the tens, if not hundreds of thousands, we would, I believe, have to slow that sort of process down and make it applicable to all. And then as we were to look at the current practice, obviously, I think we're very much open to collaborations and solutions which might then fit the mold for the more elite stream of players, which might be in the few thousand, which we already have. Currently, there's new systems being implemented, but we could obviously always do with the likes of suggestions and future collaborations. I hope that's answered the question.
Thank you, Shane. So when is the deadline for the application submission? I believe, Natasha, that was the 17th of November?
Yes. So it's the 18th of November, 12 a.m. So if you're based in Dubai, 11:59, we should have your application, 11:59 p.m.
And would a fan engagement platform be eligible to apply? I mean, this is up to Shane in terms, but I think we would mostly prefer, I would say, a multi-purpose platform. So not just like fan engagement, but fan engagement with players, parents, coaches, clubs. You know, a platform that can connect all in one app and sort of give a versatility on that. And if you want to add anything, Shane, as well, would a fan engagement platform be eligible to apply? Or would you say players?
Yes, I believe there is this underlying facet and factor that we will like to have some sort of technical database moving forward, because we will want to understand those individuals, not only on their eligibility and backgrounds, how long they've been in the UAE, what region of the country they live in. Potentially, it could lead to an enhancement of where we could be scouting from. So, but it doesn't mean that a fan engagement solution may not be the right fit to connect. And I think we're more than open to considering that.
I think something else to add is that at the end of the day, this is like a collaborative program. So though you might have a fan engagement platform where, let's say, fans get to engage with players, but if there is the, let's say, the openness of you to collaborate with other, let's say, platforms who are part of the program, and to kind of create, a super kind of a solution. So the thing is, we can always look at it from a perspective of collaboration. So you might have the fan angle, someone else might have it from a player perspective. So I think there's always, it's definitely worth kind of submitting your application and highlighting what, in what capacity or what problem your solution is solving. And then, of course, it's over to the teams who are doing the evaluation and making the final decision to see what they can envision with your technology, among others.
Thank you, Natasha. So how many current professional players does UAE FA have currently, Shane?
Great question. So professional, we consider semi-professional and above. So there may be contracted youth players considered in that bracket. Just to separate the question, we have just over 6,500 registered players in total, which all stem from the professional clubs. However, 5,500 or just under are considered academy players. So they wouldn't be defined as professional players, but they would obviously be in the professional club and academy and structure feeding into that system. It's simply once they sign a professional contract, then they have to register also that professional contract with the FA. So professional, I would say just over 1,000, semi-professional below 1,500 to 2,000, and then the rest would be youth academy.
Thank you, Shane. Another question comes from Ali. He asks, are you looking for a player scouting based on player evaluation methodology going up to national level? What do you think, Shane?
Yes, to be honest, I think this solution shouldn't just be looking at one angle, as Natasha and the team have mentioned. But at the end of the day, there is a big mandate for us to succeed on the field, and a player scouting and talent identification method within the solution may only provide benefit as long as it doesn't complicate and we don't obviously focus too in depth on that one topic. Our primary goal for this solution is to begin to connect with the tens and potentially hundreds of thousands of stakeholders, players of majority of genders and ages, and making sure of all genders and ages, and making sure that obviously then what we can do with that data would be our secondary phases towards the project. So yes, we would be interested, but primarily is to connect initially.
Thank you. So Ian asks another question. What current levels are there for youth progressions in the UAE? For example, school, club, district teams, semi-pro, pro, national. Will these potentially change over the future years to allow further elite spotting?
Good question. These are all great questions, so please keep them coming. I'm glad that we've got so many. So at the moment, we, in our formal structure of football, we obviously have our professional clubs and semi-professional clubs, which feature from our second division. We have 3 tiers of football. So you can consider that a third division, which is the second division. Then we have our first division, which goes into semi-professional structures. And then we've got our professional league. Each of those clubs will have their own youth academy by mandate. and by club licensing regulations. However, when we're talking about schools, private academies, entities which participate in football outside of the likes of a formalized club, granted obviously with the membership of the UAE Football Association, then this is where it's a bit fragmented at the moment. And so, and that's really where our target is to connect with those individuals and to achieve the types of numbers and growth. We'll be looking at the semi-formal and informal structures of private academy football, the likes of university football, which we're not currently connecting with, and also the likes of school football, and then amateur and social football. It could be five-a-side indoor facilities and leagues which are operating across both the men and obviously the women's game. So I hope that's clear.
Thank you, Shane. And Ali asks also another great question. Do you have a current collaboration with any match stats collection platform or solution? Which would you like to incorporate as part of the solution?
I feel like that's a little bit of a loaded question, and certain things I might not be able to say. We do work with stats and performance companies. Again, so those solutions do fit a current mandate. However, this particular project would be looking at connecting and then seeing whether it's applicable to apply some of our existing partners or potentially look for new partners to develop on that participation angle. This is very much a participation oriented project rather than obviously maybe in-depth analysis and analytics for the likes of players, at least at this phase of the initiative. Once we progress and maybe have better oversight and understanding whether we want to engage on that scouting and analytical level, then definitely we would look at solutions. But currently our partners don't look at that mandate at the moment. So we would have to grow that mandate or look for new partners.
Okay. I left this as the last question. So Shane, sorry we've drained you, but basically the last question is, what would you like to see as the outcome of the program for UAE FA? What would be the ideal outcome?
This is a fantastic question. And this is something that I think we're really yet to grasp and understand ourselves. But I can give you a bit of an understanding of what perhaps you can look at benchmarks from what happens around the world. If you were to go to the English Football Associations, sorry to be biased in suggesting that now, but even the US and Germany, they're connected with millions of kids around the country. And that goes into a very simple method of going onto the website and say, look, how do I get involved? How do I register as a stakeholder in the likes of the national game in the country that you reside in? We would love to understand more about the individuals playing sport, how frequently they're playing sport. How do we then offer potentially our services to them in terms of a community fashion? Can we operate coach education programs? If people want to become a referee in the future and the playing angle is not there, potentially we can offer a refereeing program as a solution. All round, we're looking at this big ecosystem of bringing people together to collaborate and making sure that we have that competitive environment and challenging the current norms at the moment so that we can succeed in our on-the-field goals as well as off-the-field goals. So what are we looking for? We're looking for connectivity, very similar to some of the biggest benchmarks, making sure that we've got the basic understanding, at least on a participation angle. And then finally, what we can do to leverage that information and data to support the community, but also support some of our wider mandate, which might be fan engagement, potential growing our partner portfolio internally and our commercial divisions internally as well. So it's very much a multifaceted project, but primary is participation, engagement, registration and understanding of football stakeholders.
Thank you, Shane. Not a question, but just a thought. AI Scout might be a good company to look at talent scouting and artificial intelligence. Yeah, I mean, we will most likely reach out to most of these companies globally. But yeah, I'll keep that in mind. Thank you for that recommendation. Just any final questions for anyone? Just last few minutes of the webinar. If not, then the application deadline is going to be, just a reminder, everyone, is going to be at the 18th of November at 12 a.m. And if you guys have any other questions, you can also find more information on DubaiFuture.ae. Otherwise, you can reach out to me or Natasha. Yeah, I believe. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Edu. Thank you, Natasha, Sheikha, panelists, and thank you everyone for joining us today in this webinar. If you have any more, I believe. Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you for that link. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing your applications.
Absolutely. And